Heck, I got bun head. Oh, hey guys, I am having quite a day. We have had guests here, and now we're having plumbing issues. If you go to a Central American country, please do not flush your toilet paper. No one's septic system can take it here. The only thing that happens is it clogs the entire everything going down, and you start having problems. Don't use toilet paper. It's evil in places that don't have adequate sewage. Costa Rica, second world. I know that America is first world. I'm in the USA. So that's my rant of the evening. Don't flush your toilet paper here because you're going to cause your host quite a bit of costs as far as plumbing goes. Hey, T King. I'm starting a little late, but I'm starting a little early. I moved it back and now moved it forward. I have had kind of an interesting afternoon. You know, I hate to say that anybody that I don't like is right. I'm just going to come right out there and say it. I know it sounds silly, but I really do not like to admit that when without a box of Kleenex is right. Hey, but she's right about something, and it didn't dawn on me until today. The Shins at Shekinah Church might just be the evil C word. They might be that high demand religious organization. Hey, Hermes mom. Hey, Maria. But here's the thing. I didn't. I was unaware of that. I haven't really followed all of this very closely, even though I had a ton of KJ supporters are saying, "Oh, you're only following this, blah blah blah." Well, I've been writing about quiverful and very toxic evangelical China churches for a long time, for over 10 years. And I'm about a year and a half past that. So this is something that I've had some experience with for years, something that I'm kind of sadly say I'm kind of an expert on now. I would hate that anybody would fall into one of these high demand religious organizations and get hurt, but it happens. And I'm believing that the Shins Church, Shekinah, is one of those. Why? Well, I will explain it in a second. Support Miranda. Support the dancers. Don't support that church. The church looks like it might conform to the bite model. I've been reviewing today all the material on the bite model. Basically, the bite model, BITE, is something that was put together by, and here I'm going to have to read his name because I can't remember it. The life of me. I can't remember that guy's name. And I've quoted him a bunch of times. Stephen Hassan, I should know that. Stephen Hassan came up with it. There's behavioral control, there's information control, there's thought control, and emotional control. Those are the three things that make up the bite model. Um, what happened this afternoon was I haven't had internet for like over 48 hours. By the time my internet was restored, I was like 10 minutes late for a doctor's appointment, and they were sending me a notice in my email box that I had a doctor's appointment today to do tests. So there was a lot of crazy things going on that being without the internet for 2 days really screwed up. Did you hear? Ah, no, I did not know that, Tracy. But I came to the same conclusion this afternoon after I got my internet. And I think that Shekinah, Shekinah Church and Dr. Shin are C word, high demand religious organizations. Why? Well, first of all, somebody connected to the dancers and to Shekinah Church put together a Twitter account and Instagram account with the same name. It's called Without a Crystal Ball or Clue. And I talked to them a little bit at first and have PM back and forth. And been supportive of them right up until this afternoon. What happened? I went in my Instagram account and I saw that they were talking about churches that they love, that they support, and one of them was Bethel. Oh, Bethel Church in Redding, California is problematic. They fit the bite model of the cult control. I've written about them and talked about them a number of times. My old church was heavily involved with Bethel. I sat at many conferences listening to Bill Johnson talk. He's the head there. Bill and Benny, his wife, all these different people that were trained by there. Our church underwent the same kind of healing theology that they teach. We all had Bill Johnson's books. We were all talking about some of these things. Pigs in the Parlor was a big one that everybody had. Many different ones. And the theology that they teach at Bethel is that anything can be healed. Nothing is because you're supposed to have it or because of any physical real flaw in you. It's all the devil, and demons and his imps. They're putting illnesses on folks and have no authority to do so. They teach you to pray to lift everything off of you because it's demonic. Jan, I was kind of feeling like that from the beginning. So I kind of thought, well, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt for now. Anytime I hear the word Shekinah, I'm going to think that the church might be Culty. Why? Because it's one of those words that I saw bandied about during all of the different moves of the Holy Spirit kind of theology I went through, which Hillsong and Bethel were part of too. They also said they loved Hillsong. Now, Hillsong has some CULT-like behaviors, and they have had a pile of bad stuff happen. But I wouldn't go so far as to yell the C word at them, but I feel like that probably fits them. They fit the high demand. Hey, Amanda, Funny Friday did a special in Bethel 2 weeks ago. You never heard of them? I've written about them repeatedly. I got to tell you about my experiences with Bethel. Bethel was pretty awful to me. Definitely doesn't give KJ a pass. None of this gives KJ a pass. She needs to leave Miranda alone. If she wants to go after the Shins in their church, that's one thing. But to continually go after Miranda and her family and her husband and the dancers, that's just plain old vanilla wrong. So none of that gives her a pass at all. Anyway, so today, this afternoon, the Instagram account promoted Bethel and Hillsong. And like I said, I might give them a pass on Hillsong because even my old church here that I went to for 4 years, we used to sing Bethel songs. Okay, not Bethel songs. We used to sing songs from Hillsong occasionally. Where Feet May Fall was one that we sang quite frequently. No, she will never get a pass from me on any of this stuff, but she might be right about Shin. I just have to say that. She might be right about the fact that it's a very troubling, high demand religious organization, or what she would call a CULT, causing victims. Yeah, exactly what happens with some of these type churches. And I'm going to explain a little bit about how Bethel has caused some victims. I just finished writing a chapter about this in my book. The problem with Bethel is they teach this healing theology. Healing is not necessarily that controversial because you can look at your Bible and Jesus healed so many people that came to him. He healed anybody who came to him for it, and he told his disciples that they and others would do even greater works than he as far as in the healing. So clearly healing is supposed to be part of the Christian thing. But Bethel takes it to a really strange place. They even have a death-raising team with matching t-shirts and all that just prays for dead people. You may have heard back in December of 2019, I think it was, that Olive Halagothal, the toddler daughter, it better not be buffering. If it's buffering, I'm coming back. Let me ask, is anybody else seeing me buffer? Yeah, they were going to resurrect Olive. They were going to resurrect her. They started singing these songs like "Come Out of the Grave," "Come Out of the Ground." Okay, I'm buffering. Buffering. Okay. We'll close this out and come right. Okay. Sign out helps. Okay. Better now. Good. So Olive was this toddler daughter of one of the worship leaders, and the little girl died unexpectedly. And it was a real tragedy. My heart went out to that family. It is just really one of those tragic things that happens. Sadly, people die and we can't make sense of it. Sometimes there's no being made sense of it. Olive, yeah, sweet name. They did put those parents through that, Amanda. But those parents were true believers at Bethel. You have to keep that in consideration. They had every belief that Olive was going to be resurrected. And I used to believe that too. I used to believe that we could pray dead people out of their coffins. Bethel has some really strange theology that I can't get behind. And I would start saying at the time we were going to the old church that I'd struggle with this. Like one of their pieces of theology is they believed in something called soul sucking. They believed in laying down right on top of the grave of some great Christian, William Branham, um, Billy Graham, various other great Christians. You lay down on top of the grave and start praying that their anointing comes up out of the grave and soaks you. So that is another thing they're promoting besides the death raising team. Sounds kind of creepy. And looking at their website with the guys in their t-shirts, it looks a whole lot creepy. I'm not saying you can't pray for somebody to be resurrected. Surely you can. Maybe we'll see that someday. But I've never seen that. What I have seen is all these people at my old church who are either now dead or hey, Renell. Yeah, Renell, we're looking at a CULT right now with Mr. Shin and Shekinah Church. He can't pass the bite model sniff test. He just promoted a whole pile of very CULT type churches. I'm talking about Bethel, which is one of them. Bethel would teach this healing theology, a very bad healing theology, I think. And I was never entirely comfortable with it. They would teach that every ailment was from the devil, and he had no right to put it on you because Jesus had taken it to the cross. By his stripes we are healed. That's one of the things they preach. And according to them, you just have to believe enough and have the proper people praying for you. So we even had a healing team, and shamefully, I was actually part of that at the time, where people would come with very serious things and we'd lay hands on them and pray. But if they weren't healed, it was blamed on any variety of things, everything from the person having secret sins, unconfessed sin, to demonic involvement. I belonged to a Holiest Pentecost church a few years when I was in college, and they believed a lot of the same things. Yeah, blaming everything on the enemy. And one of the biggest bugaboos was depression, horrible depression. And I've told this story before about my husband having some issues, and turned out it was parathyroid gland tumors. We were there getting prayer for this stuff, and if it had continued, he would have lost his life. If they hadn't figured out, if he hadn't gone in for physicals finally, and they figured out he had parathyroid tumors, it would have killed him. I don't care how much praying Bethel taught us to do for him, it would have killed him. Just like it would have killed me. And they also believe you could pray your sickness away, especially if it was mental illness. Yes, mental illness was the one they were the hardest on. I thought that was pretty ridiculous, saying depression was selfish and the devil. No, depression is a real thing, and it's not selfish. It's not the devil. It's not anything you've done. It just happens. And there can be physical reasons for it. You need a physical. That's why you need to go to the doctor and get a physical. And the same thing with anything else. I'm going to tell you some of the horror stories that we had at our old church because of this Bethel teaching and because Bethel was very involved with what we were doing. This theology has a ton of bodies at my old church. There was Pam, who had breast cancer and decided after hearing all this healing theology, hey, Prairie, to not seek any kind of traditional treatment. So she refused the chemotherapy, the radiation, the surgery, everything for her breast cancer, and said, well, God can heal me or I will die. Well, guess which one happened? She died. Her husband got a pile of insurance money, a Corvette, and a younger, cooler, newer, bouncier wife within 6 months. If it's a chemical imbalance, it may requirements, the horror of it all. No, and they say people not to take their meds. That's really crazy. They were after me to throw away all my asthma meds, to throw away my CPAP machine, everything. And I did. And I only made my asthma worse. But even worse than that is I had to get a complete total hysterectomy in those years. Because every month I would have terrible bleeding. And by the end of my cycle, I would be more and more anemic. My red blood cell count had fallen pretty low, and no amount of anything. Yes, he's in the background, stinky taking a nap. Nothing helped. And my gyno was like, this is ridiculous. You must get this surgery, or you're just going to be more and more anemic as time goes on. It'll eventually kill you. So the church, because of the teachings of Bethel, fought me on this and kept saying, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. You have to hang on and wait for God to completely heal you. Jesus healed Veronica, the woman with the bleeding issue. He can heal you. That was probably the beginning of the end for me. I was kind of like, oh, hell no. And I went ahead and had the complete and total hysterectomy. It was the right move. I felt better immediately. Here's the most frustrating comment. It's okay to take meds for diabetics, but for depression, nope. Only if you have major mental illness. Depression is not on the list. Meaning, yes, all of it. Amen and amen again, Prairie. So I was pressured not to have surgery so that God could heal me. Well, guess what? He can use physicians too. And I always tell the tale. I felt like God's hand was upon me when I had my hysterectomy because there was nobody in labor and delivery, and surgical ward was too jam-packed to take me. So they put me in the maternity wing. Nobody was having babies that weekend. I was in there by my entire self for like 48 hours. So I had all the nurses to myself, which turned out to be a really good thing, and the nurses come in at midnight after you've had surgery at noon and say, hey, you want to take a shower and wash your hair? Let's go help you brush your teeth and do all this stuff. I had a full staff, so I always say that was God's favor. So they don't believe in doing any of that. I have a friend that has damn near killed herself. Her and I were diagnosed with kind of borderline diabetic about the same time, and we've had a different response. I started taking metformin using my, get on here and get it somewhere, using my monitoring equipment, started monitoring my blood sugar levels, took my metformin, started eating better, all of that. And my blood sugar levels are normal. Even in the middle of a horrible kidney infection a couple of weeks ago, my blood sugar levels were normal. My girlfriend that had the exact same diagnosis at the exact same time as myself is now insulin dependent. Why? Because she believed in Bethel and this crap, and she stopped. She didn't take any metformin. She took supplements only because they're big on that. There's a guy named Gary that's dead now that had what kind of cancer is that? He had the cancer that's so common in men, prostate cancer. I'm Catholic now, and my priest is happy to pray for my mental health, but more so he encourages me to follow the doctor's orders. That is amazing, Amanda. That's the kind of church you want to be in. So through our Bethel trained church, all our Bethel stuff we did, Gary decided that he would heal himself with carrot juice. He wasn't going to take radiation. He wasn't going to take chemotherapy. He was not going to undergo any kind of surgery. He was going to use carrot juice. He died. He's another one that died. My friend Chloe is another one. She didn't believe in ever going to the doctor. She didn't believe in physicals. So she had not ever had a pap smear in years and years. Finally, she was in such intense pain, she finally went to the doctor. She went to the ER, and they told her that she had cancer in her brain, that it started as uterine cancer and had gone everywhere because it was untreated. And she hadn't had a what do you call that? She hadn't had a pap smear ever. If she'd have had a pap smear, she still might have died, but it's just as likely they could have treated it. Uterine cancer is usually pretty well treated if they catch it early enough with a pap smear. She thought that was evil. She thought that before Bethel. Bethel just reinforced everything that she thought, and she's dead now. And her death really shook me up. My friend Cindy Kunzman at Under Much Grace can tell you, her and I talked about this a great deal when she was diagnosed, because Chloe was given 2 weeks to live. 2 weeks. And she spent those 2 weeks going from healing ministry to healing ministry, insisting that they were going to be healed that way. And that's not at all what happened. That's not at all what happened. She died. And I was really shook up by that, because she'd been a very close friend once upon a time. I could tell you probably 10 or 15 more stories of people who either severely damaged or died as a result of following the theology. And I mean, let's look at this bite model list for things like Bethel and Shekinah Church. Some say Hillsong. Many churches like ours have this stuff. They want to control your behavior. What do I mean by that? They want to control everything about your physical reality. They dictate where and when and with whom the member lives and associates or isolates you. When and how and with whom the member has sex. That's pretty evil, I would consider. Control types of clothing and hairstyles. Regulate your diet. Manipulate and deprivation of sleep. Financial exploitation. Restrict leisure, entertainment, and vacation times. Major time spent with group indoctrination and rituals and or self-indoctrination, including the internet. And they make you ask for permission before you make any kind of major life choices at all. And that's just a few little things off this list. The information control is the I in the bite. And that they deliberately withhold information. They distort the information to make it more acceptable. And they systematically lie to you. They minimize and discourage access to non-C word sources of information, including internet, TV, radio, books, articles, newspaper, magazines, the media. They suppress anything said by former members. They encourage you to spy on other members. I mean, it's just crazy, some of the things that these places will do. The thought control to me is one of the worst. And my old church had thought control. Book club, yes. You're an evangelical chaplain's kid. I'm so sorry. Some of them are good, some of them are very bad, some of them are kind of a mixture. I was going to say with the thought control, I've seen this used again and again and again and again. They tell you to police your own thoughts to that point where if you're thinking certain things, you're clearly being influenced by the devil. They teach you all kinds of thought stopping techniques. It shuts down reality. It keeps you from having negative thoughts. It completely screws up critical thinking. It's okay. Good. So they do that a lot. Teaching thought stopping techniques, including denial, rationalization, justification, wishful thinking, magical thinking, as I sometimes call that, chanting, meditating, praying, speaking in tongues, and singing. They install within you a new map of reality. And emotional control, to me, that's one of the another one of the biggies, because they will tear you away from your family. They'll manipulate what you're feeling and why you should be feeling it. They'll promote feelings of guilt and try and control you. My old church was expert at that. But they'll make you just feel unworthy. Identity guilt. You're not living up to your potential. Your family is deficient. You should cut them off. Your past is suspect. And it just goes on and on and on with all the guilt. They put in fear of the outside world, enemies, losing your salvation, leaving and being shunned by the group. That is a big one. I've talked about that one before. For me, I was told that if I left our church, I was going to be cast out in the outer darkness and go to hell. I was told that I should divorce my husband and stay, that I shouldn't even think about leaving. That's how a lot of these places operate. So while I always kind of had a little bit of a uh, okay, I always had a little frisson of, I don't want to call it fear, but like kind of like, okay, towards Shekinah and the Shins, because there's just too much there that looked too much like my old experience with this exact same thing, and they're promoting these things now. So while none of this gives KJ a free pass at all, it is definitely something we need to think about. And how much do you want to support the other side? This afternoon I had to say, just because your enemy's enemy is not automatically your friend. And you have to really decide exactly where that line is for you. The line for me turns out to be, if somebody supports churches that I know that are the CULT word, then I'm gone. They support a divorce, even though the wife is supposed to be a submissive wife. Amanda, yes. And I saw them do that to at least 4 other women, one of whom I had no problem with her divorcing her husband because he had been raping their daughter. So they will tell you that divorce is against the Bible and all this other garbage about why divorce is bad. And then when the rubber hits the road and your husband is saying, no, I have to go to the Methodist church now, this is crazy, they'll tell you, you must divorce the husband and stay. I was told that on my very last day there. And it's like, hell no, I'm not accepting that at all. My husband and I got out together, and that's really weird and wild in the world of evangelicalism. Most people that get out do not get out as a couple. Usually one person comes out, the other one never does. And there is a divorce. So, you're not allowed to associate with people who are not part of the original group. They consider that to be unequally yoked with a non-believer, which you just cannot do, according to them. They'll also try to control your friends so that you have nobody that's outside your little high demand religious group. Stinky, what do you want? I think I'm being paged and told I have to feed somebody. So I'm going to go. All I can say is I am highly disappointed. I figured that this might be the case, that the Shins and Shekinah Church might be a high demand religious organization. But until today, I had no concrete proof. Well, guess what? Now there is proof. And don't gossip. Yes, you're supposed to. The thing is, so much gossip goes in some of these churches. Like they will pray gossip. Prayer gossip is like one of the biggest things I've ever seen. And one of the most insidious, one of the hardest. The control Bethel exerts over the town, retail, etc., reminds me of the control Gwen Shamblin Laura built for herself. Oh, what do I think happened to the plane? Jan. I got asked that being filmed for a documentary. The question they asked me is, did I think that some outside forces had killed Shamblin and Shamblin Laura and her husband? And I had to say, hell no. I think it was evangelical overconfidence, quite frankly. Hubris. The full final NTSB report has not come out that I can find, and I've looked for it a couple times. But I think when it comes out, what it's going to show is that Joe had not. Yeah, he had an idiot for a pilot. That's it. That's what happened. He hadn't kept up his license. He hadn't done the physical that's required. So his license was invalid because of that. He wasn't rated to fly the jet they were on, yet he was flying it and had been flying it. And it was an older jet. One thing I do know about airplanes is, and I learned this during NLQ when I was following the Duggars, because at the time they had all of their planes registered with FlightAware. You could see where they were going, what plane they took, the whole 9 yards. I'm not sure how much maintenance was done. And planes take a tremendous amount of maintenance. Let me just throw that out there. Too much plane for him to fly, yes. And we don't know what the maintenance was like, whether they pulled the engine every so many miles like they were supposed to, miles, flight hours like they were supposed to, if they were even doing the right kind of maintenance on it. I think that they're going to say, not rated to fly the jet, license invalid because of no medical exam, and probably inadequate servicing and fixing up of the plane. I just have a feeling that's how it's going to shake out with NTSB. I've asked a friend of mine who served on some of the flight investigations, who's also been an air traffic controller, and he said that. He said that's what he thinks happened. Now, pilot error is rare because most pilots relentlessly train for emergencies, for emergency landings, for water landings, for all of that. They train for this. How much training Joe Lara did, I have no idea, but I think that's going to come up too, is the fact that he didn't have adequate training for an emergency. Smart pilots train all the time. I like to say, what Sully did. It was miraculous, yes, on one hand, but on the other hand, he practiced. He went through all kinds of training. His training kicked in and he did what he was trained to do. He did it right and saved everybody on the plane. That's a pretty amazing one. Could have been tragic. That plane could have slammed into the Hudson, broken apart, and killed everybody on the flight, but it didn't. His years of experience and his training paid off. I think probably Joe Lara didn't have that many years of experience and or training, and he probably did not go out and train for emergencies. So that's what I think happened. All you have to do is look at a lot of these big ministries and see what happens with them. The kind of accidents they have, the kind of trouble they get into, and you can pretty much tell which ones are toxic or not. My dad originally wanted to be a pilot, but couldn't pass the training. Air Force pilot training is rigorous for good reason. Absolutely. There's a channel with an airplane investigator on YouTube. He talks about the plane crash. I can't remember the name of the channel. I probably saw that, Amanda, because I saw one where he broke it down, where he said the same things I'm saying. I follow a couple pilots. I like 7-4 Gear because he's a little funny. Sometimes he tells some fun stories about things that go on, including joining the Mile High Club. I got a laugh out of that video. And from him, I've learned one important thing. Don't ever take your shoes off of the plane. Don't step on that floor. He says those floors are filthy, and I tend to believe him. So there's that. Flying is a weird enough thing these days without adding more weirdness to it. So that's what I think the report's going to show. It was tragic. It really was what happened. I don't know about you guys, but I was shaken up. But I knew Gwen. I had done Way Down Workshop as a coordinator for years, and it was helpful for a while. Now, the guilt and beating yourself up emotionally if you don't lose weight was not fun, but the other parts were. And I did it for a long time until my pastor stopped me because Gwen had formed her remnant church and was saying so many things. My pastor's like, oh, hell, she's crazy. And if you have a crazy pastor saying another pastor is crazy, you got double crazy. So I just was, hey, Brenda Lee. So I was just blown away when she died. I cried that weekend. That was a bad weekend for me. I had so much bad asthma that weekend. And then that happened on top of it. I was just incredibly blown away because it was not any way that I would have imagined that it would happen for Gwen. And she was still a relatively young woman. And I mean, it's just, yeah. So I was surprised I still had that kind of strong feelings for her, but they were there. So support Amanda the dancers. Don't support the shins of the Shekinah church. So that's really, and you have to be careful with any church. You have to be careful. Churches have a tendency to spin easily into high demand religious organizations. I saw it happen here to a church that I knew well and I loved. Tracy, was she successful in being in Way Down? I saw people who didn't lose an ounce, and I saw people that lost 100 pounds. I was somewhere in the middle. I lost some weight, but I didn't lose every pound I needed to. Now I think you're better off just eating sanely and maybe moving a little bit more. Oh, gosh. So she was one of those ones that went and ran her mouth. Has everybody seen The Way Down, the HBO limited series on Gwen? That was filmed, and then Gwen died when they were in post-production. So they had to scramble and recut the whole thing. They're coming back with a new season, and I don't know what there is to be discussed. I think they pretty much discussed it all. But like I said, I filmed for a couple of things. I think I ended up on the cutting floor because I laughed every time they asked me do you think Gwen was bumped off by jealous haters? Hell no. It's never that. It is always evangelical hubris that takes these people out. That's what sets up the Jack Shopes of this world to sleep with 16-year-old girls, even while they're pastoring and saying how righteous they are. I was reading somebody today. I wish I could remember who it was. And they were, oh, I know. I got the new John Boehner book. John Boehner wrote a book. He was the Speaker of the House. He was the orange guy, was kind of wrinkly. He's a Republican. When he was in office, he wasn't my favorite person, but he wasn't super awful. But I'll tell you one thing. His book is freaking hysterical. I've laughed so hard reading that book. He talked about if somebody tells you how righteous they are or tells you they have this much power, whatever, they don't. So it's the people that are not running around saying these things that are actually the powerful ones. And I see this all the time in high demand religious organizations where the pastor or whomever they're acting um, so righteous and they're telling you how righteous they are. Run like hell, run like the wind. She tried to pray when she should have eaten, so she failed badly. Yeah, 100%. Successful people don't screech every second about their successes. They just are. They just are what they are without trying to quantify it. So there you go. Okay, you guys, I'm going to go. It's been 40 minutes. I have guests. I can hear they're back and they're in the living room. So I need to go try to be kind of cordial, even though I'm not feeling it. You know me, I try to be pretty honest about who I am and what I am and what I'm feeling. And right now, I'm not feeling it. Okay, I'll talk to you guys later. I've missed the last couple days because of the internet going out. And I'll see you later.